Okay, everybody, let's dig into this science fiction and fantasy anthology and collection book haul. Remember, we said that a collection is any book that includes stories only by one single author. Like this one, our first one for the day that was in this box of random anthologies and collections. This is Best Science Fiction Stories of Clifford D Simac. You know by now that I'm a Simac fan, even if in a previous video I struggled with pronouncing his name. I guess it is Simac. This is the Science Fiction Book Club edition, right? Lawrence Radskin cover, right? It says Doubleday Science Fiction on the bottom. These are stories circa 1954 to 1960. And this is the first printing. Let's see if we can find that. Pardon my big hands coming in. The first printing on this book is indicated by a little code on page 219, which should be right here. Right, nope, that's 209. Bear with me. This is the fun part. And hey, read snippets of the story as it goes, right? 219. There it is, right? Move that a little bit closer, let it focus. There's a little code that says 02 and then the letter M on page 219. And that says that this is the first printing. Again, it's the Science Fiction Book Club edition, but this is really cool, right? It is in rough shape, and there's definitely that happening on the dust jacket. The fact that there is a dust jacket, though, is a big plus, even if there's lots of kind of tarry things. I might, for the first time ever, actually find a Mylar cover for this, just to keep it from getting any worse. This also shows signs that it was in a house where people were smoking cigarettes and stuff. Hey kids, don't smoke. See what it does to your lovely book? This white cover here, or even kind of slightly cream off-white color, becomes just chemically destroyed brown. If it's doing that to this book, imagine what it's doing to your lungs. Anyway, here we are, the best science fiction stories of Clifford Simac, according anyway to the Science Fiction Book Club at the time. Let's look at the contents. This is the story Founding Father, Immigrant, New Folks Home, Crying Jag, All the Traps of Earth, Lulu, and Neighbor. I love Science Fiction Book Club editions. I have a ton of them. I've had more. Excuse me. How do I get rid? Why? How? What compelled me to get rid of some of the great Science Fiction Book Club editions that I had? Stuff like the Foundation Trilogy and the first books in the Dragon Riders of Pern series by Anne McCaffrey. Why would I get rid of that? Anyway, I'm never going to get rid of this one. This is a keeper. This is mine. This is the best science fiction stories of Clifford D Simac, with a little funny photograph of the man himself. How about that? And also, thanks for that. The little code there on page 219 to indicate the first printing. Information gleaned from the Internet Speculative Fiction Database, isfdb.org. Have that website bookmarked if you are a sci-fi fantasy fan, especially if you're a book collector. Yeah, lots of information on these videos comes directly from there. All right, next. This is the second of three single author collections. This is actually a collection of 3 short novels by the great H.G. Wells. Yeah. Again, pretty beat up, not particularly super attractive Dover edition. Generally, I like Dover books, the Dover thrift books and stuff like that. If you're just looking for the content, they are a really cost-effective way to just get books. This one went for $4.99, which also was at $4. That makes it Difficult for me to place exactly when this edition was published. This was originally from 1960, but that would have had a $1.45 cover price. So this is obviously somewhat later. I was not able to track down the exact printing of this, but whatever, right? This is another one where just even looking at the condition of it, right? What's going on there? And the fact that it's a Dover, very cheap kind of Dover edition, and they basically specialize, if not mostly, even exclusively in public domain kind of stuff. So this isn't obviously like the original printing of any of these books, obviously. But again, for me, collecting is mostly about the content. These are books that I actually intend to read, even if I have obviously read The Time Machine before as a kid. And I have a copy of the actual same Scholastic edition that I read when I was a kid, that I bought at a book fair, a school book fair. And it's in the giant stack of books, so I didn't pull it out. I'll put the cover over here somewhere. And I'll read that again when it comes up at random. But Story of Days to Come and When the Sleeper Wakes. I think I may have read When the Sleeper Wakes a million years ago, like as a young kid. Maybe not. But the other two are new to me, so that's cool, right? H.G. Wells. And again, right, Dover Thrift Edition, not great condition, not going to cost anybody any money. But look, all the content is here. All those three great science fiction, prophetic, apparently, science fiction novels of H.G. Wells are there. Keeper, right? It's not pretty. It's not in great shape. It's got three prophetic science fiction novels of H.G. Wells, which is good enough for me, and unabridged and complete, which is nice too. Yeah. Who abridges books? Never do that. Oh, that's crazy. Okay, so those were the only two larger format. There was the one book club hardcover, and then the sort of trade paperback. Everything else we're going to see are all mass market paperbacks. And you'll see a little bit of the history of the trim size, including this one, which is much smaller. This is from Dell, and this is the last of the three single author collections. Incredible Tales by Saki. Saki was actually H.H. Munro, or Hector Hugh Munro. Born in 1870, died in 1916. This is the Dell second printing from September 1967. Very creepy cover, right? By Bob Pepper. Look at that, right? What's creepier than like Vampire Kid? Very, very cool. Absolutely lovely cover, actually. Let's talk about condition again, right? Remember, I'm buying books that I just want, that I want to read. I don't suffer too terribly over condition. If I did, this one would, I don't know, be given some sort of appropriate rite of passage and then sent away to somewhere else. But first of all, it feels like I should have read these Incredible Tales of Saki a long time. Looks like this guy is, these are very, very short stories, and definitely seems like a missing piece in my weird fiction education. So I'm excited to read this, and I'm happy to have it. Condition, oof, right? Let's take a look at that. Not just the bend and then some kind of discoloration here on the front cover, which, is actually thankfully okay because the art has been preserved. The spine is in shockingly good condition. The back, I don't want to know exactly what happened here, but I think there might have been something that somebody erased in some way, or I don't know what happened there. And then marker was applied to the green sprayed edges on the outside. And we taped it together at some point. We meaning whoever did that, and it sure wasn't me. This is somebody's name and address I probably shouldn't show you. I don't know, previous owner there. But this is fun. How about that? Right? This was a library edition. And that is why somebody blacked out, crossed out somehow got rid of the stamp here, got rid of the library stamps. So this book is in bad condition because it looks like it was read a lot. Remember these? You have to be at least my age, if not a little older, to remember these pockets where a card would go in. It doesn't look like anyone ever checked it out because there would be date stamps there. But anyway, I don't, right? Nothing about the condition of this book prevents me from reading it, right? It's got an introduction here. And look at the list of stories, if I can turn this page here. I'm not going to read all of these out. I'm going to try to go through the tables of contents of all of these anthologies because I think that's where the loveliness lies, because we're going to be looking at the different authors and stuff. But this is all stories by Saki, real name H.H. Monroe. All of these from what would have been the probably very early 1900s, very, very late 1800s. Don't know. He apparently died at the age of 46 or so. So the product of a fairly young author. Incredible Tales by Saki with the creepy, super creepy cover by artist Bob Pepper. Fabulous. All right, that's all of the single author collections. Everything else that you're going to see in this video is an anthology. So in previous videos, at least two, I've talked about advice for science fiction authors, really a question for science fiction authors. Do you have to say the year? Do you have to specify what year your future science fiction novel is set in? We're going to take a look at both of these that do specify the year, the City 2000 AD and 2020 Vision. So we have 23 years ago or 3 years ago, which is it? Let's start with 2020 Vision, or I'm sorry, let's start with 2020 Vision. Edited by Jerry Pournelle, right? One of the, one better known science fiction authors of really the second half of the last century. Terrific, really terrific John Berkey cover, this is exactly my era of SF when I was a kid. This really cool wrap cover. And 8 fascinating studies of life in the year 2020, right? How about that? 8 of the best science fiction writers to construct their own personal visions of how things will be in the year 2020. There is some pessimism. Most likely not enough, but also some hope. Well, there was, right? And every story gives new perspectives on life today and how it is modeling and how it is molding tomorrow. And that's the key bit here, right? Because even if you're writing a story set, well, if this book was published, this is the Avon edition from 1974. So there's definitely some dust on this one. But, let's say you're going 50 years in the future and you're writing, a book set in, 2073. And it's really never going to be what you actually, I hope it isn't going to be what you actually think the year 2020 or 2073 is going to look like. You don't know. There's no way to know. These really, really smart people, right? And you can just sort of get a glimpse of the lineup from this. Paul Anderson, Harlan Ellison, Larry Niven, right? These are smart, accomplished authors and edited by a smart, accomplished author. They're throwing out there, all things being equal, it might kind of look like this in 50-some years, or 50s, a little less than 50 years. But really they are, like all good science fiction does, I'm sure, right? Having not even read this yet. Really talking about the world of 1974, right? But anyway, right? Having now put the real 2020, thankfully, right, in our rearview mirror, I mean, the question immediately starts right up, and you can't not think about it, right? Which of these authors is going to have foreseen COVID? Anybody get the smartphone? Right-wing domestic terrorism? You know, because those were some of the features of 2020. But anyway, let's see at least if we can get some clue from the contents page. We've got, introductory material by Parnell, and then Build Me a Mountain by Ben Bova, Cloak of Anarchy by Larry Niven, who sounds like he's getting there, Silent in Gehenna by Harlan Ellison, which I feel like I have read in one of the other many Harlan Ellison collections. That sounds real familiar. The Pugilist by Poul Anderson, Probably, or Is He, right? Predicting UFC. Eat, Drink, and Be Merry by Diane Gerard. Prognosis Terminal. Okay. Let's sit with Prognosis Terminal, set in the year 2020, by Dave McDonald. Now I'm sitting here and that actually gave me the creeps. I walked through this and ran through this before making my notes and did not actually catch that. Future Perfect by A.E. Van Vogt, and A Thing of Beauty by Norman Spinrad. That's a great lineup, right? These are great science fiction authors. I'm going to use the word great a lot in this video because almost all of these are by, to some degree or another, kind of the usual suspects of science fiction and fantasy at the time, which is good, right? And that's fine, because some of these people are among my favorite of all time, right? But it's a nice, dense little book, kind of slightly, faded, kind of red, sprayed edges that were, sort of standard issue at the time. So how about that? I'm actually really looking forward to reading this one, even though I am kind of freaked out about that Prognosis Terminal. Oof. Okay. Going a little bit farther into the past of the future, The City 2000 AD. I'm having some focus trouble, right? Maybe I should be holding these up a little bit better. The City 2000 AD, Urban Life Through Science Fiction. This is the only printing, and you'll notice this throughout, that most of the books in this collection that I bought all together as one lot on eBay are the first and only printing of these anthologies. This says that even 50 years ago or so, anthologies did not sell as well as novels. They, in only a few instances, were these reprinted. There might have been, a UK edition of it, of course, but this one, like many others that you'll see today, only had the one printing, July 1976. Lover by Carrie, cover by Larry Krisak. Pretty cool, right? The 100% looks exactly like The World of 2000, remember that? This book is really, it's packed with content, you'll see. Very, very small type. Pretty good page count. Where are we? It's 304, but it's really a 320-page book. Took 3 editors, Ralph Clem, Marty Greenberg, and Joseph Olander, to put together. So in reality, right, and looking through the table of contents, you'll see it says Urban Life Through Science Fiction, right? The City 2080. This is really much less, if at all, about the actual year 2000 as opposed to the previous book that was trying to kind of predict to the year 2020 or what that particular author of that story thought 2020 might look like. This is really broadly science fiction set in cities. And that's an interesting subject all on its own, obviously. So that said, could this have been called, right? Science fiction authors who don't want to get into the where we're talking about, ooh, this was 23 years ago, and look at like this weird guy, and I don't know what's going on there. That doesn't look like 2000 to me. Could this have just been called The City of the Future? I don't know. That's a terrible title, actually. Maybe The City 2000 AD is catchier. Anyway, that was the title they went with in 1976. All the stories were published previously, it looks like, and those are credited here to the various magazines. So let's look at the contents here. And again, the lineup of these books, crazy, crazy good, right? There's the Hugo Gernsback story. That's actually, I understand, an excerpt from the novel Ralph 124C41. Then we've got Henry Kuttner, Jesting Pilot, Thomas F. Monteleone, Chicago. I'd love to see the future of Chicago, or at least see if he was close to Chicago of 2000 AD. Robert Sheckley, Street of Dreams, Feet of Clay. Charles Beaumont, who you don't see that often, right? Kind of love the Charles Beaumont. If you're a Twilight Zone fan, you saw a bunch of Charles Beaumont stories adapted there. The Vanishing American. These are all sort of in parts, Yesterday's Dreams and Today's Problems. J.G. Ballard, cannot go wrong. I mean, again, the lineup, right, of both British and American authors, crazy, right? Some real gems hidden in here. Brian Aldiss, Total Environment. Robert Silverberg, of course. I mean, you'll see Robert Silverberg's name over and over again. Joel Hensley in Dark Places. Frank M. Robinson, East Wind, West Wind. Ron Goulart. I'm kind of a Ron Goulart fan. You know, I don't normally love like comedy genre stuff, but he makes it work. The great Dinar Kuntz sighting. He did start as a science fiction author. I've got a couple of his ace doubles, some of his oldest books, The Undercity there, before he became kind of the, a big bestseller, actually not kind of, but really a very big best-selling horror author, I think in the 80s and so on. James D. Houston, William Earls, Richard E. Peck, Mac Reynolds, again, another one of those authors that are just all over everything in this time period. Scott Edelstein, and then a second story by Robert Silverberg, which is called A Happy Day in 2381, which again shows that this wasn't necessarily trying to be like 2020, like the 2020 vision that we saw, any kind of a real prediction of the year to specific year 2000. Right, contents again fairly densely packed in there, yellow sprayed edges, because that's what books looked like at the time. This is again the only printing from Fawcett, 1976, right? Pretty cool. And again, because it's really just generally about cities in the future, we'll forgive all the 2080 stuff and absolutely 100% read this anthology. Okay then, so from here on out what we have is pretty much just random science fiction and fantasy anthologies, starting with Daw Books number 200. Pardon the glare there for just a second. And you can see these are numbered, which is why a lot of people have started collecting Daw books, I think, just honestly, because they're numbered. They're all great. I mean, I have bought, still own, and have read and will read so many of these great classic Daw books. Crazy. So definitely collect away, right, if you're a collector. And you'll want this one if you have a Daw collection or want to start collecting Daw books. This one is the Daw Science Fiction Reader. Number 200, published in July of 1976. I don't think, honestly, coincidentally, the 200th birthday of America, the whole country, if you're not of a certain age, you wouldn't know or remember this, just caught up in bicentennial fever, this kind of wave of patriotism and interest in American history and stuff like that. So the fact that their 200th book from Daw happened to be released in July of 1976, was that an accident? Probably not. It worked out for Marvel Comics as well, too, in particular with Captain America number 200, which was, has August 1976 as the actual publication date, but I bought this in July of 1976. Probably at the White Hen Pantry in Schaumburg, if you're keeping score, off the spinner rack. But as a kid, even just as and this was like where I was just in peak Marvel Comics fandom. No way was I not going to buy this. This was not in the eBay box that I bought, obviously. I've had this one since July of 1976. But anyway, the Daw Science Fiction Reader, a very special anthology edited by the man himself, Donald A. Wollheim, right? His initials, Donald A. Wollheim, founder of Daw Books. Previously an editor at ACE, and he was really the guy behind my coveted Ace Doubles. My love for Ace Doubles. Donald A. Wollheim, really one of the most influential science fiction editors in America, or just of all time. So let's take a look at what this is. It includes a full-length novel by Andre Norton. And what you'll see in here, right, is essentially a list of the Daw science fiction and fantasy stable of authors at this time, right? There's the novel by Andre Norton, Fur Magic. Gordon R. Dixon with Warrior. Tanith Lee. I'm a huge Tanith Lee fan. Really starting to collect a bunch of her stuff. The Truth. Looking forward to that. Alan Burt Akers, Wizard of Scorpio. He was writing that huge series that just went on and on for Daw during this period of time. That story relates to that series. Lynn Carter, The Martian El Dorado of Parker Wintley. Sounds like fun. Marion Zimmer Bradley, of course, The Day of the Butterflies, and Brian M. Stableford, who was writing his great and very collectible series at the time, too. This is Captain Fagan Died Alone. Nothing bad about this, right? First printing, 1976, Daw. All good. This is a keeper, 100% for sure. The 200th anniversary of Daw and the 200th anniversary of America at the same time. Nice. Next up, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to suffer over the whole Playboy thing again, which you saw me do in another video, whatever. Whatever they were, whoever Hugh Hefner was, etc., let's just say they did publish great science fiction for decades and decades, and published some terrific anthologies as well, including this one, Transit of Earth. This one is the Playboy Press edition, 1971. It's credited, or not really credited, as edited by the editors of Playboy, but it looks from my kind of little bit of research that it was actually put together by Ray Russell. I'm kind of a big on credit where credit is due, so should have had his name on there, but anyway. The really nice cover is by Shelley Canton. The title, Transit of Earth, comes from the first story, I'll hold this up here, called Transit of Earth by Arthur C. Clarke, which I am absolutely sure I have read before. I don't remember 100%. But in any case, there it is. Here, and then the very next story, the Richard Matheson story, Button Button. I was excited to see this because just like a couple days, like a day before I really started putting my notes together for this video, I happened to watch, which I've seen a couple times before, the movie The Box that came out in 2001, right, with Cameron Diaz, James Marsden, Frank Langella, You'll see, I'll stick the movie poster here, so if you remember that movie. I just watched it, and it was credited, obviously, as based on Button Button by Richard Matheson. So now I'm just like super intrigued to read the original story, which is actually really, really pretty short. You'll see it begins on page 25, and then the Ray Bradbury story starts on page 35. So it's not too long. I would be really surprised if they stuck to the story, right? There had to be more in the movie. I don't know, right? But I think I'm going to set this aside before it goes into the big pile of to be read stuff and just read that one story. Who's not a big Richard Matheson fan anyway? So much of his stuff had been made into movies. He really wrote in a very cinematic style. Movies or episodes of things like The Twilight Zone. But anyway, with the rest of this table of contents really just reads like a list of the greatest science fiction authors of all time. I mean, this is just like, masters of the craft, right? The Machineries of Joy, I know I've read that story by Ray Bradbury. The Invasion by Avram Davidson. I'm an Avram Davidson fan myself. William Tenn's Bernie the Faust. Cephalotron by Thomas M. Dish. Frederick Brown's It Didn't Happen. Another Bradbury story, The Man in the Rorschach Shirt. Waste Not, Want Not, by John Sambrot. Let There Be Light, another Arthur C. Clarke story. And Frederick Pohl, again, I'm a big Frederick Pohl fan, Speed Trap. And then why not end it with a J.G. Ballard story, Souvenir. A lot to love in here. Just the authors are absolutely not to be trifled with. Very excited, very, very excited to have this. Absolutely a keeper. There's the lineup again on the back cover. Transit of Earth from Playboy Press, 1971. This has been around for a long time. And of the books in this lot that I bought from eBay, you'll see there's some condition issues. Most of them are a little on the beat up side. They have, all sorts of, tears and even water damage and all sorts of crazy stuff going on. This one really seems to have survived very nicely. It's in terrific shape. Transit of Earth. Outstanding. Speaking of condition issues, this one's a little bit more beat up, you'll see. But again, the condition I'm really less worried about. If it's intact, I'm going to read it. And I'm definitely going to read this one, A Century of Great Science Fiction Novels, edited by Damon Knight, whose name you'll see again throughout this video. This is the Dell paperback edition from January of 1965, so an earlier one. This is a big book. This is a densely packed. I mean, look at the type in here. Thank God for reading glasses. Huh? Right? Especially if you're a gentleman of a certain age range. Densely packed, 448 pages. Of course, the green sprayed edges, because they just did that then. Couldn't find a credit for the cover artist. That's kind of neat, though, right? If you're out there and you know, or want to try to look that up, oh, look at that boo-boo, who the cover artist is, in the comments below, please, right? Share the knowledge. So this one is, 6 short science fiction novels, a couple of which I've read. I own other copies of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, and we just saw The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, so this makes at least 3 of those that I have at this point. So the first 2 definitely not new to me, but I don't know, they're there, right? And anyway, the other 4 I have not read, and so here we go, right? The Absolute at Large by Carol Sapek. He's the author of R.U.R., the play in which he coined the term robot. How about that? Golf by Robert A. Heinlein, because he's just going to be in these at this point in time, right? In 1965, there's going to be Heinlein in there. E for Effort by T.L. Sherrod. And Hunter Come Home by Richard McKenna. I have not, honestly, ever even heard of any of these 4 short science fiction novels. So I'm all in, right? Why would we not? Look at that great ad for The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, right? Just vintage all the way around. Condition issues, definitely. These are just like, got basically scraped off. Somebody folded the entire cover back. Oh, God, don't hurt books like this. Lots of boo-boos everywhere. But readable, in some cases fixable if I feel like I have to, but the binding looks good. The spine is not terrible. So anyway, a keeper just in because you have to, right? A century of great short science fiction novels edited by David Knight. I did say Damon, right? I didn't say David because his name is Damon and not David. Next up is 17 Times Infinity. Great science fiction. Everything is great. It's all great. This is great. Isn't this great? I mean, this is really is great. I think it's great. Groff Conklin. This particular edition is the second Dell printing, which is, again, is unusual for these. Usually there was really pretty much only one. From April 1969, groovy Jack Gagan cover. Let's have some fun with this one, right? The back cover is just great. Cover copy is just an art. It's an art form all to itself. Countdown, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. What? Something. 8, missing, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and blast off into the wildest unknown with 17 superb stories that go rocketing into space and beyond time by the finest masters of SF imagination. Outstanding, right? Why not? So 17 times infinity means that there's 17 stories in here, obviously, which means and this is a thinner book, so these are obviously much shorter stories as opposed to the 6 novels. Pretty densely packed in there, though, right? Which would probably have to be to put 17 reasonably sized short stories in such a thin book. But again, right? The lineup. Ooh, some fun kind of frontispiece art there. Credit where credit is due to the original publications. So this is not an original anthology. This is collected from various magazines and so on. Some giants, right? Some lesser known or lesser remembered authors too, right? I'm actually looking forward to reading those more, because I've read a lot of stories by, guys like Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury, obviously. Good to see Frank Herbert in here, though I'm much less a fan of his short fiction than I am of his novels, obviously. And of course, the E.M. Forster story, The Machine Stops, which is kind of in lots of different anthologies over the years. But, some unfamiliar names to me, right? Like, right up front, Hollis Alpert, no idea. Hal Draper, no idea. Howard Fast, I have heard of. Henry Gregory Felsen, nope. Richard Guggen? I can't even see it. Richard Goggin? No idea. Rudyard Kipling is just okay, right? Why is he in here? But why not, I guess, right? Alan Nelson, no idea. Is it Idris Seabright? Wow. Evelyn Smith, is that E.E. Doc Smith? I think it is. Theodore Sturgeon, William Tenn. Really great lineup of authors that I love for sure. And then some I've never in my life heard of. And if that's a gap in my education, well, this book is going to fill in that gap. How about it? 17 times infinity. This is why I buy these boxes. A book I've never heard of, full of stories by some of my favorite authors of all time, Frederick Pohl, Isaac Asimov, etc. And then a whole ton of people who are just completely new to me, even though this book is pretty old. I was 5 years old when this book was published, April 1969, by the way. You do the math. Who cares how old I am? From 17, we're going to click down to 5 for 5 Unearthly Visions. Obviously, some longer stories in this one. Also edited by Groff Conklin, who was a former bookseller and then a book critic for Galaxy magazine from 1950 to 1955. And then after that and throughout, a prolific anthologist, as we've just seen now that we have just in this random box. There's 2 edited by this guy, Groff Conklin. There he is. And again, thank you to isfdb.org that let me know that if this number here, right, I have it upside down, don't I? 1549 appears on the spine. That means that this is the first edition. 1965 first printing from Fawcett Gold Medal. Fun cover by Richard Powers. Let's look at the contents. We're looking at the contents on all these because that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Like who's actually in here and what are the stories. Legwork by Eric Frank Russell. A lot of these are authors that I've seen in Ace Doubles, right? Conditionally Human by Walter M. Miller Jr. Stamped Caution by Raymond Z. Gallus, is that it? There's a couple of authors who I am not familiar with. Of course, then Damon Knight with Dig. And you know that we all love Clifford D. Simac with Shadow World. And I looked back and that story, Shadow World, is not in the collection that we saw at the very top of this video. So that's cool. More variety of Simac. Fantastic. Variety is the spice of life. So 5, what is this? 5 probably longer stories or novelettes maybe. Monsters Galore. What? I need to find that. All right. Again, some condition issues, lots of condition issues. This one may have, where's that come from? This one may have encountered water. Water not good. Yeah, that's maybe some liquid got into this. It is a little rough. There's that kind of stuff happening. But again, it's readable. It's all here and fantastic. Definitely broken spine, but not so terrible. 5 Unearthly Visions. Terrific. I'm 100% in. I'm all in. That's going in the to be read pile for sure. Swords Against Tomorrow. Edited by Robert Hoskins. Getting into the fantasy genre finally with stories from some of the greats of the day, and that day being August 1970 from Signet, which is an imprint of the New American Library, or was. This looks like the first and only printing again, right? Kind of an unusual Gene Safran cover. Do I like it for fantasy? Do I? Tell me if I like this cover illustration in the comments below. But anyway, I'm all in on this one, and why wouldn't I be? The lineup of authors is right on the cover, and it's hard to argue with this, right? Yellow sprayed edges, of course. Swords Against Tomorrow is holding this up in a way that's not too shaky. Demon Journey by Poul Anderson, Bazaar of the Bizarre by Fritz Lieber. I'm sure that is the story that inspired the name of the feature that was in Dragon Magazine. If you're a big D&D fan from way back, Dragon Magazine had a column called Bazaar of the Bizarre, where they featured new magic items. So that's cool. And of course, everybody back at TSR in the day was a huge Fritz Lieber fan. A lot of sort of like the D&D magic system and so on was based on his stories. Vault of Silence by Lynn Carter. Lynn Carter's gotta be in every fantasy anthology of the 1970s. I think there was actually a law. I think Congress made that a law in like 1971. John Jakes, of course, is all over the place. Devils in the Walls. And Citadel of Lost Ships by Lee Brackett. Unassailable lineup. No reason not to read this and just love it and enjoy it. I'm all in. Thin, kind of tight little volume. In good shape, right? Excited about the condition of this one. Spine is a little bendy, but that's not the end of the world. I love it. Swords Against Tomorrow. Fantasy is here. It is not all science fiction in this box. Edited by UK authors Michael Bishop and Ian Watson. Changes, Stories of Metamorphosis. So you'll see a few of these are kind of general anthologies that are sort of like X number of great science fiction stories, and that's pretty much it. Or we saw the, City 2080 and so on. This one is like that. It's themed. This is Stories of Metamorphosis. You're seeing this, right? With a werewolf story by Ursula K. Le Guin. How's that not worth $2.75 right there? Love that. That's the price of admission. Looks like the first and only printing, right? Ace, 1983. So this is, I know that I'm old when I think 1983 seems like not that long ago, but it seems like not that long ago. I was in college, so stop with your nonsense. Uncredited kind of surrealist cityscape with big lizards cover. Again, if you know the artist, tell us in the comments. We want to know. Terrific lineup of authors, not just Ursula K. Le Guin. Let's look. We're here. We have the book. We can, and so we must look at the table of contents. Here we go. We'll hold on to it. An introduction from Ian Watson. Sporting with the Chid. Barrington J. Bailey, interested to read a lot of his stuff. The Wife's Story, Ursula K. Le Guin, that we have been promised. Rogue Tomato by Michael Bishop, interesting. The New Me by Thomas M. Dish. Legacy by Charles Sheffield. Promadam? Now I'm just embarrassed. By Kit Reed. The Birds by Michael G. Comey. Desertion by Clifford D. Simac. This also not in that collection that we first saw at the very beginning of the video, so that's cool. More Simac is always good. The First Christmas Tree by Tom Dish. And The Dark of June by Gene Wolfe. And Indian Rope Trick Explained by Rudy Rucker. And there's more. Flies by Night, Lisa Tuttle and Stephen Nutley. Then The Day of the Wolf by Ian Watson. Between the Dark and the Daylight, Algis Budrys. Once on Arania by R.A. Lafferty. Always excited to get R.A. Lafferty stories. Master by Angela Carter, which I did read her Bloody Chamber and Other Stories. That is not in that anthology, so new Angela Carter for me. The Apotheosis of Myra by Walter Tevis, who's really, author of The Man Who Fell to Earth. And The Tithonian Factor by Richard Cooper. Terrific, right? Definitely a great mix of American and British authors from the time, all writing about metamorphosis. What's not to like about this one? Fantastic lineup of authors, getting into a little bit more of the modern era. I know, I'm old. 1983 was the modern era, so stop it. This little section will end here with After the Fall, edited by Robert Sheckley. Okay, so this one. Robert Sheckley, the author, right? This is the only U.S. edition from September 1980. Paul Alexander did the cover. It was published 3 months later in the UK by Sphere, but that's it, so find those or not. Again, a themed anthology, just like we saw with changes in stories about Metamorphosis. This is after the fall. This is it. Over. Done. Through. Fini. Boom. Kaput. The end of the world and how to enjoy it. Really? Right? I should send this to Moyd over at Media Death Cult, right? Because he bleeping loves the end of the world. Here's an anthology that takes the apocalypse not really too seriously. No more mamby-pamby, no more pussyfooting, picky little disasters, earthquakes, infernos, mutant DNA, plagues, giant insects, giant comets. Live a little, have some fun, destroy the whole shebang. So we are just gleefully destroying the world in this one. And why not? From the safety of an old paperback from 1980. But the lineup is great, right? Last Days of Parallel Earth by Robert Sheckley. The Day After the End of the World by Harry Harrison. Is that 3 different stories or a long title by Roger Zelazny? I'm not sure. William F. Nolan is in here. He's well represented in my Ace Double collection. K. Copeland Shea. Where Are You Now? Eric Skorbick. Bud by Ian Watson. Philip Jose Farmer. Love Philip Jose Farmer. The Making of Revelation Part 1. Rebecca Rubinstein's 17th birthday. The Revelation by Thomas M. Dish. Nirvana is a Nowhere Place by Joel Schulman. What is that? Air by J.A. Lawrence. The Kingdom of Orion by Bob Shaw. Good to see Bob Shaw out there. And Just Another End of the World by Maxim Jablowski. Or is it Jablowski? Fantastic book. What? Right? Let's gleefully destroy the entire world in an old sci-fi anthology. Fantastic. These are series anthologies, which was not at all uncommon. I don't think it's uncommon even now, right? Starting off with Far Frontiers, edited by Jerry Pournelle and Jim Bain. This is actually from Bain Books. It's the first of a series of 7 Far Frontiers. This is really a magazine published in mass market paperback form. This one is from 1985. The series ran through the winter 1986 issue. Bold choice with the silver. It does seem to mute the Michael Carroll illustration there. You can see sort of like the space shuttle reflected in mirrors. I find this whole magazine and books clothing thing fascinating. I'll definitely keep this in my giant TBR pile, despite worries about just how right-wing it might get. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, come on, right? Based on the list of authors that you'll see in here, not entirely a worry there, but whatever, right? I take science fiction and even science fact, which we'll see in there, as it comes, right? And we're going to take everybody at face value here and not be judgy. We don't want to be judgy. So this is really, it looks like a mass market paperback, anthology, and I guess that's exactly what it is, but it's really also sort of presented and in lots of ways treated as if it were a magazine. Some great names in here. I'm not going to read through every single one, but you're going to see Paul Anderson in here, David Brin, Norman Spinrad, Damon Knight, Dean Ng, Greg Bear, Larry Niven. Some of my favorite authors in here, right? I've read tons by Greg Bear. Love Greg Bear. Met him, hung out with him for a while. Great guy. Sad that, he's no longer with us, but also a big fan of Larry Niven. Norman Spinrad is Norman Spinrad, right? Cool to see Robert L. Forward in here, The Paradox of Interstellar Transport. Ben Bova. I actually worked a little bit in the alternative fiction and poetry days with Richard Geis. Or kind of sort of knew him. Not really, but sort of. Interesting character, like really an interesting character, guys. So I'm just going to kind of flip through this. It's very weirdly tightly bound. Like it's hard to kind of get in there. Kind of oddly thick paper as well. But there's just a lot going on in here. And things that you don't normally see inside of a mass market paperback. Like, where did I just see that? Like an actual advertisement. So this is, Bain advertising for their own books inside. Because this is kind of a magazine. It's not really a book. Or is it? It's a book. But it's also a magazine. Some really cool interior art. Just strange. It's strange but true, right? This is just not something you really see at all anymore. And you didn't really see back then, to be honest with you. This was a sort of an outlier. And again, you'll see that Bain did this again. Or I think this is the again. But we'll see. You're going to see a couple more similar to this, if not almost exactly like it. But Far Frontiers, this was the first issue. I'm not going to find those illustrations again. But you get the idea, right? It looks like a book, but is kind of presented like a magazine. Some of the art is really cool, though, right? Nothing to keep me from reading this. I'm not going to suffer over Bain Books has got a lot of kind of, sort of far-right guys writing for him or used to. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, right? I'm not profiling. If it's got Larry Niven and Norman Spinrad and Greg Bear in it, I'm reading it. Plain and simple. Far Frontiers. There it is. All right, fantasy. We haven't seen fantasy in a little bit still. This is mostly science fiction, this book call, but there was fantasy mixed in, including Tales from the Vulgar Unicorn, edited by Robert Lynn Asprin. It's a Thieves' World anthology from Ace Fantasy. It's called actually Ace Fantasy Books. This is the 4th edition from July 1985. Walter Velez cover, who did some work for TSR Wizards of the Coast in the day as well. This is actually the second of the series. Second of 14 shared world anthologies set in the Thieves' World setting. City of Sanctuary. This kept going until 2004's Enemies of Fortune, edited by Lynn Abbey, who I knew and worked with at TSR and Wizards of the Coast. Love Lynn Abbey. She was the author who sent me a 104-page outline. And also helped add a little bit of context and expertise and wisdom to the guide to writing fantasy and science fiction. So thank you there, Lynn Abbey. Let's take a look at the contents. So this is this was sort of a shared world. Fun lineup of authors. Philip Jose Farmer, fantastic, right? David Drake, okay. Lynn Abbey, right? Love in Lynn Abbey. A. Van Vogt, fantastic, right? Janice Morris and Andrew Offutt, Robert Lynn Asprin there again. And Robert Lynn Asprin also wrote this last essay, The Lighter Side of Sanctuary. So just cool, right? Maps, why not? Absolutely. Very kind of sword and sorcery fantasy in a shared setting with authors kind of coming and going. Editor's note, introduction, etc. This isn't a magazine book or anything like that. It's a straight up anthology, but set in the same world that was really created by Robert Lynn Asprin and Lynn Abbey. Tales from the Vulgar Unicorn. This is another one where it's like, how have I not read this? I have been aware of this forever and ever since it first started, and I had friends who read it. It was talked about all the time. I should have read this a long time ago. So this is book number 2. I don't think they have to be read in any kind of order. They're just individual adventures set in this world. Do I hold on to this, hold this back? don't put it in the big TBR pile and collect all 14 of these? I might have to. I'm nervous. I just might have to. Tales from the Vulgar Unicorn. Universe 2. You're going to hear me move my notes around, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Edited by Terry Carr. You're going to see Terry Carr's name a lot, I think, in this video. So right away, right on the first name on the list, Harlan Ellison. You know I love Harlan Ellison. This lineup is really, really, really hard to argue with. One of the few that we've seen so far that is not really kind of 100% or almost 100% male. This is close, right? We're at least getting Pamela Sargent and Joanna Russ in here. That is just the time period in action, everybody. You know, these are older books, and so older ideas were in play. This actually came in second, which is kind of fun, that it was Universe 2. Came in second for the 1973 Locus Award for Best Original Anthology. I didn't know they had a second place, but there you have it. This is the 1972 first edition from Ace Books with a Dean Ellis cover, which is really, really cool. Post-apocalyptic frozen New York City. There are actually 17 Universe anthologies in all, and all of them edited by Terry Carr from 1971 to 1987. All of the stories are new in this anthology, which is cool, right? This is what's called an original anthology, which means that all the stories have been published first in this book and aren't gathered from, what would have been the magazines of the day. So this is really neat. Rather than show the contents page, let's flip through this book so that we can see each story and see that each story gets this really cool line drawing from Alicia Austin. And just kind of see what that looks like. Because this one is very cool. It's got that kind of remainder punch, which, any kind of extras like this, interior illustrations, I always think is really, really, really cool. And look, the lineup. Fantastic. And again, they're actually crediting the artist, which I absolutely love. And of course, Harlan Ellison has to insist that he gets that separate. Damn it, I'm the copyright owner of that story, and I will sue anyone who looks at it sideways. And I guess he has the right to do that. Retroactive by Bob Shaw. Right? So each one has an illustration. Let's see if we can find the next one without skipping past anything, because you know what, these videos go on as long as they need to go. It's going to be as long as it needs to be, and you're just going to love every second of it, I promise. Robert Silverberg, When We Went to See the End of the World. Cool. What is this, right? Like crab monster kind of guy. Alicia Austin. Fantastic. I want more. We're going to look at all of them. Funeral Service by Gerard F. Conway. Wow. Yeah. Next is A Special Condition in Summit City. R.A. Lafferty is just... R.A. Lafferty books are hard to come by, and so I'm always excited to see an R.A. Lafferty story in any of these anthologies. And I don't know, right? It's 1972, so there's going to be naked people in it. I don't know. And William Rotsler, Patron of the Ants. That's really cool, right? The hair flowing down from this woman in profile. That's great, actually. I love that illustration. I love the sound of pages flipping like that. I'm just a sucker for the books as artifact. Honestly, I just like this. I could just sit here and do this all day, every day for the rest of my life. This is my retirement plan. making these videos, I swear to God. Indulge me or just turn it off if you can't, but oh my God. Anyway, Alicia Austin, look at these, look at the work on here. Ah, great. Aliens, and they look like tourists. Useful phrases for the tourist by Joanna Russ. You know, I've talked about wanting to and will and promising to read more Joanna Russ. Very short one from her. On the Downhill Side by Harlan Ellison. I have read this story, I'm sure, right? But another just great illustration. And then there's this, right? I knew she was a virgin because she was able to ruffle the silken mane of my unicorn. Harlan Ellison is the greatest of all time, and I don't care what anyone says. Oh, Lord in heaven. Pamela Sargent, The Other Perceiver. It's like this weird alien guy reading a book, and there's some kind of like projector tech thing back there. That's just, it just fires the imagination immediately. Absolutely fantastic. I'm lingering on this anthology because of these illustrations. I can't not. My Head's in a Different Place Now by Grania Davis. Frog, crane, and then these kind of weird little like alien guys in the garden. Love, pure nerd love. Next one. Oh, this looks like, you know, flat out sci-fi adventure action here. Guy with laser rifle from Gordon Eklund. I'm a big Gordon Eklund fan. We've talked about that in previous videos. I don't care who knows it. Stalking the Sun. There it is. The Man Who Waved Hello, Gardner Dozois. Really best known as an editor, right? But Gardner's out there writing his own stuff for sure. Another just spectacular illustration. The way the lines kind of pull around and sort of frame stuff. Outstanding. That's a real sort of extra artistic talent to do these line drawings, which allows the publisher here to print these without having to pay for what's known as halftones, which are more expensive, which you'll get little gray, you get little teeny dots that make things look like gray. That's more expensive to print in a web press. So if you can do line drawings like this, it's no extra money. And so that's a real talent that interior illustrators, you know, had to master. The Headless Man by Gene Wolfe. I mean, again, the lineup, just fantastic. Literally a headless man there. Can't wait for that one. This one's cool. So if you saw a previous video, and I will put the cover up here, I'll give you some space for that. The cover of Davy by Edgar Pangborn. You know that I'm an Edgar Pangborn fan. Based, if nothing else, than on his book A Mirror for Observers. This is Tiger Boy, and this is actually a sequel to Davy. How about that? So I definitely have to, now I have to have read Davy before I read this. I'm going to have to just pay attention to my life now. I think that is the last one, and it is. It goes right to the Great Science Fiction Collections ad, right on topic for us. Look at that. We spent a little bit of time with Universe 2, but why not? Great illustrations, a terrific editor in Terry Carr, outstanding lineup of authors, Harlan Ellison, how do you go wrong? Pangborn, Russ, Lafferty, a keeper, absolutely. And if you may have noticed that I'm going kind of in order. Far Frontiers was the first one. This is the second. This is the second. Yeah. And so is this. I don't know why. I'm just like a closet numerologist, I guess. Infinity 2 with the beautiful purple sprayed edges. Because, okay, so there's some extra exciting stuff about really each one of these, to be honest with you. Every story new, right? So this is an original anthology, yeah. First printing from Lancer Books, 1971. And again, most of these really only had one printing, so there you go. You better grab them when they come out, right? This is cool though. This is particularly cool, right? Looking at the cover art, fantastic. Jim Steranko, he says, and then pauses for all the Marvel Comics fans and just comic book fans in general to just be like, oh no, hold on, wait, what? Jim Steranko cover, absolute worth having this book for that alone. I mean, this is that if you don't even care about the rest of the content of the book, and I do, of course, Jim Steranko, a painting so awesome, they printed it twice. I was supposed to say nice, so that it rhymes, but it doesn't matter. It's actually not nice. It's awesome. Jim Steranko cover. Wow. I mean, right there, again, right there. I have that in my collection. It ain't going anywhere because of the Jim Steranko cover. Who do we got in here? Pohl and Karen Anderson, of course. Murphy Saw the Monster in the Clearing. Michael Fayette. Some of these are new authors to me, right? Not familiar with Michael Fayette. Not familiar with J.F. Bone. Great name. Not familiar with Ed Bryant. Definitely have read James E. Gunn and K.M. O'Donnell. Don't know Llewellyn Myers. Don't know Russell Bates, I don't think. Definitely William F. Nolan, who's in my Ace Doubles collection more than once. Don't know Anthony Warden. Absolutely Robert Silverberg, right? One of the absolute grandmasters of all time. And so is Arthur C. Clarke. So got some big names in there anchoring the thing, starting with Pohl Anderson and ending with Silverberg and Clarke. So there is reason to read this other than the Steranko cover, of course. And who knows, this is the idea. Okay, so yeah, you'll get me to buy this with Silverberg, Clarke, etc. Other authors that I know, Pohl Anderson and Karen Anderson and William F. Nolan. And are some of these like new favorite authors of all time? I've never heard of them. I've never read them before, but that doesn't mean they won't become major favorites. It's always also fun just to kind of see what they're advertising in the back on these, right? The great science fiction comes from Lancer. Okay. There is some great science fiction from Lancer. Look at that. Time Gladiator by Mac Reynolds. The Man Without a Planet by Lester Del Rey. Love these. Right? And it gives you the address that you could write in. And just basically mail them a check based on, right? Just sort of say, okay, send me that. Definitely, let's just say pre-Amazon, 1971, Lancer Books, Infinity 2. So there were 5 Infinity books published from 1970 to 1973, 2 in 1972. And you got to think about that, like, in the early 70s, right? Think about all these books just on my book haul videos that I've done in the last few months. How many books, and they're all different. There's this, big stable of authors that kind of interact with each other, and they're all in different anthologies together or not, and so on. So many science fiction and fantasy books being published. I just don't know that that's true today. There is definitely something to be said for quality over quantity, but then how do you discover new quality authors like these authors that I've never heard of in here who might be amazing? And I'm just going to assume that they are. You just got to, they were just throwing stuff out there. And I just love that, and I wish we could bring that era of publishing back. I don't know that the sort of big profit-driven publishers are going to be able to do that. But maybe that's what indie publishing is doing. Right? Indie publishing. Publish more books. Get more sci-fi, fantasy, horror, etc. out there. Yay, indie publishing. All right, that was kind of an aside. Moving right along. Now we're at the number 3 spot. This is New Worlds of Fantasy number 3. Oh, look, it's Terry Carr again. Here, love this cover, first of all. I mean, how do you not love this cover with the sort of big-eyed monster alien guy? This is Terry Carr with a different series, New Worlds of Fantasy. Again, this is the only edition published, or at least in English, by Ace Books, July 1971. This amazing cover that I was just talking about, and I'm hitting the tripod and it's shaking a little bit, but we're okay with that, right? We're all friends here. This is not a professional production by any means. I called him, but Spielberg couldn't show up today. I don't know, because he's like busy or whatever, Spielberg. Kenneth Smith is all sorts of sci-fi goodness with this cover. Okay, so used books are great for so many reasons, old vintage books. I live, if I could, inside of a used bookstore. Many different reasons for loving used books, and here's one of them. The Worlds of Fantasy. Look at Mr. Barber, 475. This was in Mr. Barber's classroom, and you could check this out if you had Mr. Is it Parker? Parker. Mr. Parker as your teacher. Oh my God, really? Right? So this was 1971. I would have been starting second grade after this book was published in the summer. If Mr. Parker was my second grade teacher, I would have totally checked this out. And I would have been like, I would have remembered. I'm not even kidding. I'm not doing a bit or whatever. I'm kind of doing a bit, but in this case, I'm not. I have no idea the name of my second grade teacher. I could not tell you at gunpoint. If Mr. Parker was my second grade teacher and had this available in his classroom, classroom number 475, to check out, I would have had my name in the little card that went in this, and I would have remembered Mr. Parker for the last 52 years. So, Mr. Parker, wherever you are, thank you for having this book, New Worlds of Fantasy, edited by Terry Carr, in your classroom so that your students could read stories by authors that are spectacularly awesome. Peter S. Beagle, kind of can't go wrong. R.A. Lafferty again. Oh, if you can find R.A. Lafferty out there in the world, get those books. Avram Davidson, huge Avram Davidson fan. We keep talking about my love of Edgar Pangborn. Fritz Lieber, there he is again, right? I mean, just one of the sort of founding authors of sword and sorcery. Don't know Victor Kontesky, but will probably love him. Also, Zena Henderson, Through a Glass Darkly, probably the 100 millionth story with that title. But okay, Roger Zelazny, why not? Terry Carr jumping into Robert Bloch, you cannot say no to. Jorge Luis Borges, why not? J.G. Ballard, Say Goodbye to the Wind. Seriously? Mr. Parker's got J.G. Ballard in his classroom. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Parker, wherever you are. A Message from Charity by William M. Lee finishes it out, right? It doesn't go on anymore. Oh, look at this. More groovy interior art, which I don't... Oh, this is Alicia Austin again, right? Just like Universe 2, right? Should I flip through this one? Because, I mean, why not, right? Look at that. Farrell and Lila the Werewolf, Peter S. Beagle. I won't go through each and every one, because really this is less about Alicia Austin. As awesome as she is, I mean, terrific, right? But Mr. Parker, wherever you are, bless you for introducing your students to J.G. Ballard. Oh my God. And how about this, right? I mean, how early is this, 1971, that you've got this list of great authors on the front, but Ballard isn't on there? You're not leading with J.G. Ballard? Terry Carr, right? He's not there yet. That's amazing. Outstanding. Mr. Parker, wherever you are. it's in good hands, man. I will keep this. And listen, if I can pass it on to kids, I'll do my best. Love that. Wow. Mr. Parker, wherever you are. Clarion 3. I don't know, you've probably heard of the Clarion Writers Conference. This has been going on or the Clarion Writers Workshop has been going on forever and ever and ever, and is still going on. You will see a link to that if you're interested. This is an anthology of stories by students and or instructors at the famous Clarion Writers Workshop. It's the first and only printing from Signet again, October 1973. This is the third and last of the 3 Clarion anthologies edited by Robin Scott Wilson. There was another one called Clarion SF, edited by Kate Wilhelm, released in 1977. This is cool, right? Weird cover going on there. Don't know the cover artist. And there's a lot kind of going on in the beginning where we're talking about the award winners and honorable mentions and so on and such likes. But and again, look at this like skinny little book with, of course, the ever-present sprayed edges. But look at how much is going on in here. Were these, because they're at a writer's workshop, you can't give me like 10,000 words to read overnight. Everybody give me really short stories. Is that what's going on? Don't know. But here's another one where there's a lot of names that I just am not familiar with at all. But of course, mixed in are F.M. Busby, Ursula K. Le Guin, John Shirley, Theodore Sturgeon. More people I kind of don't know. David Wise, I've seen in other things. I worked with a guy named David Wise at TSR. I think that's not the same guy. Kate Wilhelm, David Wise again. And Damon Knight is in here. So this is really cool, and I think, was Lisa Tuttle. And of course, ending with an essay by Harlan Ellison. When dreams become nightmares, some cautionary notes on the Clarion experience. You got to leave it to Harlan Ellison to go into the Clarion anthology and then apparently write something that feels like or sounds like in the title a condemnation of the whole thing. I don't think that's probably exactly what he's doing, but I don't know. Any book with Harlan Ellison in it is a friend of mine. I'm excited to read this because this is sort of, a look into, it's not even sort of, it is definitely a look into younger authors, maybe, less established authors, obviously in here, attendees at the workshop, mixed in with, some of the absolute greatest of all time. Harlan Ellison, Ursula K. Le Guin. Cannot go wrong. What is that in the middle here? Oh, for God's sake. Can we just not? And by the way, you can't. Not long after this book was published, in 1973, the cigarette ads went away, and here's why. Because the Surgeon General has determined that cigarette smoking is dangerous to your health, and it is. The Surgeon General was not lying. Don't smoke, kids. Do not smoke. Just don't do it. Chrysalis 4. Edited by Roy Torgeson. 1979. This is Zebra Books. I haven't seen a lot of Zebra books. Cover by former TSR co-worker of mine, Clyde Caldwell. Clyde Caldwell is just all over D&D stuff in the sort of classic era. Looks like a really great lineup of authors here. Kind of can't sneeze at Ari Lafferty, Quinn Yarborough, Orson Scott Card, Robert Thurston, Spider Robinson, and more. I don't know. Don't let me be that guy. Anyway, who says bad things about authors. Orson Scott Card, God bless. Here is the lineup, not it turns out, in the order that they are presented inside the book, and you'll see why I know that in a second. But we got Alan Ryan, Chelsea Quinn Yarborough, Carl Hansen, R.A. Lafferty, Robert Thurston, Spider Robertson, Octavia Butler. Love Octavia Butler. Fantastic. Charles L. Grant and Thomas F. Monteleone, who's kind of because he went on a really like apparently crazy racist, sexist rant that got him kicked out of the Horror Writers of America, which I don't know. I don't know what that means. Has he been canceled? I don't know. This was when was this published? Kind of a long time ago, 1979, I said. So let's say that this was before he went crazy, and we'll read the story anyway and take it at face value. Gregory Long and, of course, Orson Scott Card. So here we go. Let's take a look at the contents pages. Oh, what happened? Disaster. Okay. So we talked about how I don't really care that much about the condition of books so much as the content of books, right? Here's, Mr. Parker's students love this so much. They just beat the crap out of it. And then Dan, you dropped it in a puddle. Oh, Mr. Parker is going to be, you're dead. Mr. Parker is going to yell at you. But it's here, right? It's here and it's all readable and all the stories are there. Chrysalis 4, edited by Roy Torgerson from 1979. The spine is coming away completely. And look, the whole first 38 pages and the front matter are gone. And there is no getting this back. They were not loose in the box or anything like that. They just were gone. And God knows how long they have been gone. They could have been gone literally for decades. What's the book collector to do, right? Now, a book collector who's like, well, I'm collecting all of the Chrysalis books, are going to, just have to reject this. This is probably going to go into, the recycling for some people, but not me. Not me. And here's why, right? Obviously, I'm not going to put this up on eBay when I'm done with it or anything like that. We'll give it the proper funeral rites, but I'm going to read the rest of it. And it turns out that 9 of the 10 stories are in here. And the one that I'm missing is actually When Dark Descends by Charles L. Grant and the aforementioned Thomas F. Monteleone. So, I mean, that's a bummer, right? That any part of the book is missing. It is part of and parcel to this sort of buy a whole box of random books on a lot from eBay. And they're going to be in different conditions. Zebra Books was never known as sort of like the publisher of quality, so there might have been just some kind of bindery issues to begin with that made that go away. But there's so many reasons that a book can fall. I have books that are still waiting for me to fix them, where the cover's gone completely. And, some things are fixable. This can be glued back on. I'm never going to get the first 38 pages of this. But I have the rest of the 9 stories. Yeah. Which means I've got the R.A. Lafferty story. I've got the Octavia Butler story. I'm 100% in on that. So this is going to go into the big TBR stack. Clyde Caldwell cover. Terrific. This is going to go into the big TBR stack, and when it comes around, I will read it, and I'll just pretend that it starts with whatever the first story that actually exists in the thing. I don't know. It looks like that was a pretty long story. Sadness, but recoverable. 90% of the stories are still here. I'm still going to read it. Why the hell would I not read it? Remember, we talked about most of these are single printing only kind of things. This one is actually the second printing from 1978 of the Best of Galaxy Volume 4. This is edited by Jim Bain. When he was with Ace, before he started his own thing. Jim Bain passed away in 2006. But, it is really influential, especially in the, sort of military SF subgenre. If that's a subgenre. Whatever. Anyway, This book was first published in 1976 with a Rick Sternbach cover, which you'll see here. So there's that. And then this one is Patrick Woodruff, all rocket ships all the time. Another rocket ship on the back. That's all I need. Put a rocket ship on the cover and I will buy the book. Just plain and simple. All rocket ships all the time. This is the last of the 4 volumes of the Best of Galaxy series. Of course, that's Galaxy magazine. An influential magazine back in the day. Looks like these are all stories published in Galaxy in the year 1975. The lineup is definitely feeling kind of hard SF, which is fine. You know, I'm happy with hard SF. Zelazny, Larry Niven, Craig Steele, Street. I'm sorry, I'm going to call him Craig Steele. Michael Bishop is here. Spider Robinson, John Sladek, Jerry Pornell with 2 stories. Stephen Robinette, and then there's Joanna Russ again. Joanna Russ just keeps showing up in all of these. Not all of them, but you know, I love seeing her name in here. I am going to be really studying Joanna Russ's body of work. So yeah, why not, right? The Best from Galaxy, Volume 4. 1978. With rocket ships. Science fiction masterworks. Love it. All right, so the last of these that are sort of the series of them, I'm going to kind of break away into a few things that are slightly different outliers, but another magazine collection. This was not unusual, obviously, right? We're seeing, the Best of Galaxy magazine, and then this is the best from fantasy and science fiction, 18th series. This one edited by Edward L. Furman. So, the magazine of fantasy and science fiction is still going today, right? Still going strong, which is great. This one is from Ace Books, August 1972, uncredited cover artist. So again, if you can identify the cover artist here with the groovy dinosaur and the planet and stuff, please do so in the comments. There were actually 24 of these published from 1952 all the way through 1982. So think about that. For 30 years, they were publishing the best from fantasy and science fiction. The last 10 of them were edited by our guy, Edward Furman here. Avram Davidson before him, Robert P. Mills for a few, then Anthony Boucher with or without J. Francis McComas to start with. And they were all the editors of the magazine at the time. Edward L. Furman served as editor of the magazine of fantasy and science fiction from January 1966 to the June 1991 issue, so a long time. Currently edited by Cherie Renee Thomas, still going strong out there. Yeah? Let's take a look inside a little bit. It has the... What is it with Kent cigarettes? Just don't smoke. Kids, don't smoke. It's dangerous to your health. Let's look at the lineup. I mean, I'm already seeing names on the cover, right, that are J.G. Ballard, Ron Goulart, who I really like, Harry Harrison, and many others. And what I love are some of these where you get and many others. I've been one of the many others in anthologies before. I won't say that it hurts, but it's, I don't know, you just go, well, that's part of it, right? That's part of life in the trenches here. But let's see who the many others are. The Cloud Sculptors of Coral D by J.G. Ballard. Can't go wrong with Ballard. We got Robert Sheckley, Lloyd Biggle Jr., Ed Jesby, there's somebody again, not familiar to me. Don't know Sonia Dorman or Leonard Tushnet or David Red or Vance Andal. So this is great, right? Another one where I'm thinking, wow, I mean, who are these people? I might become like this. I'm fully prepared to become a huge Sonia Dorman fan. I'm not even kidding. I'm not goofing around. But we've got William M. Lee in here, David R. Bunch, Ron Goulart, our friend Ron Goulart there, K.M. McDonald, Harry Harrison, and Harvey Jacobs. And there are cartoons in here by Gahan Wilson, I guess, just because. And why not? Let's see if we can find one of those. Did I just miss one? You know, this is the best thing on TV, right? Old guy flipping through old books. Cigarette ad. No. How am I not finding? There it is. There's a few of these. It says, how come we draw all the Shaggy Dog... What? Cases. How come we draw all the Shaggy Dog cases? I don't even understand what that means. Was that a thing? What's the Shaggy Dog case? Is that like cop lingo for something? And there's a horse at the bar? I don't understand cartoons. I don't understand the cartoons. Do you know how badly that makes me feel? That makes me feel a bit worse than if I was one of the many others in the book. I think we've located the cause of that tie-up at 34th Street and 5th Avenue. King Kong is reaching up to get the news helicopter. Fantastic. I mean, come on, right? Great authors. Ballard is enough to keep it. And then these Gahan Wilson cartoons, the best from fantasy and science fiction, 18th series, 18th of 24. Fantastic. That's terrific. You know what, let's just kind of press on. Is there any reason not to just press on and pressing on? If I can find the other books that I had there right here. Okay. So much behind the scenes. I'm just sitting here and you're looking at kind of this desktop. No, now you're looking at Alpha 4 edited by Robert Silverberg. So in this random box of books from eBay, I ended up with 2 sets of 2 from the same series. And this is the first of those. I've got Alpha 4 and Alpha 9, both edited by Silverberg. Different trade dress. I like this one better. But let's start with this. Let's start with number 4. October 1973. This is Bruce Pennington cover art, which is great. And I just love the design of keeping the art inside of the 4. Really, 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 really nice. This is interesting too, right? Robert Silverberg, one of the smartest people in science fiction of all time. Where is here? He actually begins the thing right on the sort of teaser page. The Alpha series has 2 criteria only. 1, literary excellence. 2, an importance to the genre. Fantastic. I mean, this is the only one that I've seen so far, the only anthology I've seen so far that starts with that kind of manifesto, which is great. So, I mean, here's a guy, smart as can be, a spectacular author in his own right, who's just deciding right up front and putting it up there. Literary excellence to be found here, importance to the genre to be found here. I'm inclined to believe Robert Silverberg when he says that. Yeah. So who are we going to be reading in here? Thomas M. Dish, Damon Knight, a lot of, right? I know you're all thinking the same thing. Like there's a lot of the sort of usual suspects, but because these are all coming from around the same period of time, there were definitely these very prolific authors, especially writing a lot of short stories for the magazines at the time. So it's not at all unusual that you'll see them all kind of rotating in and out of these anthologies. But anyway, William Tenn, we've seen him. Brian M. Aldiss, we've seen him. You know I love Edgar Pangborn, we've seen him. Seen Terry Carr, both inside and outside of the book, right, as editor and author. Another Ari Lafferty, fantastic. You know I love James Blish. And by the way I'm saying that, that means it may sound like I don't, but his Star Trek books are just weird and crazy, and so therefore awesome. And then his original stuff, can be spectacular. Like The Seedling Stars in particular by James Blish is an absolute must-read. Here's Norman Spinrad again. Here's Philip Jose Farmer again. And Alfred Bester. You really can't go wrong with this lineup. You just can't go wrong with this lineup. Would like to see a couple of ladies in there, right? I mean, you're definitely seeing that 1970 whatever, 1973 sort of general boys club of sci-fi. But, you know, there it is. They were great authors, and that doesn't mean they should be excluded because they're boys, but there were also, at the same time, working really fantastic women who shouldn't be excluded because they were women, and I'm not, under any circumstances, accusing Robert Silverberg of that. These are the stories he picked. This looks fantastic. I'm going to read it. It is in the to-be-read pile for sure. And am I thinking that I need to go and buy the rest of the Alpha series? Because now I have 4 and 9. 9 was the last one. They were all edited by Robert Silverberg again. At some point they switched over from, this is Ballantine, to Berkeley. But that doesn't really matter to me, right? I mean, the publisher is whatever. This is the last of the 9. October 1978, covered by Vincent Segrelis. The stories inside, though, go back as far as 1952. Let's take a look at who's inside here. And I think this seems to be just Robert Silverberg picking stories he likes, right? Because this is sort of going back in the day to various magazines, credited as you should. Introduction by Silverberg. Walter M. Miller Jr. is here. Robert Sheckley is here. Philip Jose Farmer is always there, it seems like. Kate Wilhelm, thank you. Michael Shara. Clifford D. Simac again. And again, I checked the collection that we saw at the very beginning, the very first book in this video, and the story is not in it. So we're getting all the Clifford Simac variety. Fred Saberhagen, Good Life. And there's Joanna Russ again, right? Nobody Home. So look at that. Between 4, boys club, to 9, not entirely a boys club. Progress being made. Should I buy the rest of these? Because I would have to go out into the world and really look for these. This is not just gonna. They're not just gonna show up at random. I mean, you know me. I'm not averse to buying 7 books just to have the complete series of 9. We're gonna put those there. We're gonna put those into the special place where those go, because we're probably gonna do that. Because why the heck not? Okay. Sound effects of Phil flipping to the next page of his notes. All right. Remember when we looked at Far Frontiers, that weird silver Jim Bain magazine that looked like a book? Well, he did it again, gosh darn it. With Destinies. Actually, another science fiction magazine published in mass market paperback form. This is Destinies Volume 2, Number 1, which that's always bugged me. Just number it like numbers with the volumes. I don't know. That's so very old-fashioned. February, March of 1980. It was old-fashioned in 1980 to do the Volume 2, Number 1 thing. Anyway, this is the 6th book in the series. Cover art by Spanish illustrator Enric Torres Prat. This is Jim Bain when he was still at Ace. What do we got? It looks longer than it is. Okay, it looks like a big chunky book. There's some, again, the same condition issues we've seen. It looks like water maybe met this at some point in its time, which is sad, but alas, right? It looks like a chunky book. I mean, I've got fairly big hands. I probably need to trim my fingernails. But this is it's a hefty book, and it feels heavy. Love the art. But it's not that many pages, actually. Look at that. The paper is just super crazy heavy. It's way beyond the normal kind of mass market paperback paper. It's just thicker, it's heavier. And I think that's probably because they've got all these interior illustrations, which again, they're doing ads inside. So it's presented as a magazine for sure, even if it's in the form of a paperback book. This cover is terribly bad. That's sad. This was water or coffee or something, which is too bad. What are we looking at here? We're looking at the contents. It's great to see Steve Rasnick-Tem, who I worked with in the ill-fated, and with his wife Melanie in the ill-fated Wizards of the Coast Discoveries imprint, which was just the saddest thing that collapsed immediately. I had a book that he went and published elsewhere afterwards on deck from him that I loved, called Deadfall Hotel. It's out there in the world. Go buy that. I would have published it for Wizards of the Coast Discoveries like I did with The Man on the Ceiling. Also had a Melanie Tem book called The Yellow Wood on deck, and then the whole thing, I can't. I'm just going to get sad if I start talking about that. The little imprint that couldn't at Wizards of the Coast. Bad mojo about that still in my life. Anyway, what do we got? Gordon R. Dixon, we've got David Drake, and you know that relationship between Jim Bain and David Drake has been a very profitable one for both. David Drake has been one of the sort of Bain books' major standouts. Larry Niven is here, Kevin O'Donnell Jr., Ian Watson, so we're going across the pond as well, Kevin Christensen, and again, Steve Rasnick-Tem, love him. And then they're doing Speculative Fact, right, on predicting the future, by Frederick Pohl, who is super smart, writes great nonfiction as well, or wrote great nonfiction as well. Sandra Miesel, don't know. The Dorsai Irregulars, outstanding. I think that's about the Dixon books, right? Here's Jerry Parnell. Looks like he's sort of coming back to a column he wrote in Galaxy. I don't even know what that is. And are we looking at, are these reviews of books by Norman Spinrad or Orson Scott Card, or are they the ones who wrote the reviews? I don't know. It would be weird to read a review from this long ago of a book that's whatever. Tom Doherty, the publisher, who then went on to found Tor Books. Cool. And, cover illustrate, or the interior illustrators are all credited, which is nice. And then this is going to be hard to flip through. It's a very tight binding and these heavy pages, and you can, of course, subscribe to it, or you could, 50 years ago. And, right, how long ago? 1980, not 50 years ago, but almost. There's Frederick Pohl. I'm not going to go through every single one of these illustrations. A lot of them are cool, right? Lost Dorsai, Gordon Dixon. There's more and more. That looks actually pretty cool. I'm just flipping through what I want to flip through. Awesome, right? That great black and white line art. To me, this is just, there's no reason not to read this in whatever way that some of the stuff, the science fact or whatever, might be dated, 43 years into the future. Where, the 43 years of the golden age of science. So, it might be, it'll be interesting to see what Frederick Pohl says about predicting the future from 43 years ago. Anyway, ads, the whole thing. And again, terrific art, terrific authors. No reason not to read and love this book. I don't feel like I really can do it. I can't go and buy all of these. I think there were too many. Right? I don't know. How many were there? I think there were a lot. I don't know. I still don't understand the magazine disguised as a book, but here it is. And I'm kind of getting... I'm I'm kind of starting to like the idea, and I keep hitting my tripod, and you're forgiving me. I know you're forgiving. I can feel your forgiveness. It always makes me feel very, is it sad? I feel nostalgic for the B. Dalton price sticker. Never put stickers on books, but if you're going to do it, go back in time and work at B. Dalton. I worked at a B. Dalton in wherever it was in suburban Chicago for a very short time, and I really should have stuck there. I really liked it. It was just kind of a part-time gig. I don't know why I didn't stay there. I should have stayed there. Anyway, this is Destinies Now into 1981. Volume 3, number 1. This is the penultimate issue of the 11-issue run. Could I find all 11 issues if I've already got 2 and then I only need to buy 9 books? I don't. Oh, come on, Phil. What are you do? Oh, my God, what are you doing? Steve Hickman cover. Terrific. Kind of weird. I don't know if that's a robot or what's going on there. B. Dalton sticker. Let's talk through the contents page just because we're here. We've got it in our hands and we're doing it. David Drake again, right? Gregory Benford, Kevin O'Donnell again, Ian Watson again, James Randi, that's cool, David Langford, Richard Sean McEnroe, sorry, and Eric Vinikoff. It says James F. Hogan. Is that James P. Hogan? We got Robert Silverberg going into the fact thing, Humans as Machines. Norman Spinrad on books. Take Me to Your Teacher by Elizabeth Ann Hall. I believe she was married to Frederick Pohl, who is here again with Predicting the Future again. Deaning. Interesting. Nuclear Survival. Hold on. Part 4, Power and Politics to the People. Like most of the rest of us, you probably believe that a nuclear exchange between the USA and the USSR is a significant likelihood, and that it is not survivable. If so, you're wrong. Survival is an option. So apparently surviving a nuclear war is an option, but the USSR collapsing in, what was it, less than 10 years is apparently not an option. See what I mean about predicting the future? You're not really predicting the future, Deaning. You didn't. And anyway, right? Let's look at the art because it's super cool. I'm just going to flip through. Shall we take a little walk by Gregory Benford? Yes, let's do it. Let's go to one of the moons of Jupiter. I'll do it. I'll go. Sign me up. Oh, that's cool. Right. Love the tech, anything. I just love sci-fi and fantasy art. It's just like the whole package of the imagination. Tears for Emily. And there's some really terrific interior stuff in here. These are really, really great. Should I be buying these, the rest of these? Should I go and find these? Should I collect these? There's a big part of me is saying, Phil, you gotta just not. You gotta stop. When do you stop? When do you become Jules Burt where you're literally just collecting? I'm buying everything. My goal is to have every single book ever. And that, I say that out loud like making fun of anything, of myself and whatever, but that sounds like a great idea. I would totally do that. I would be that guy, with the bunker full of books at the end of time. I could live there. There are a lot more where this came from. Look, you know what? Am I collecting all the Destinies? Am I collecting all of the Alphas? If you can engineer a Steranko cover, should I buy all the Infinities? The universe looked pretty cool. And I should 100% have all of these Thieves World books. Oh my God. Send money, because I'm not going to be able to afford all the books that I'm going to buy based on this. I wasn't really even thinking of that as I did this. And so anyway, listen, this is the last one. This is going to be a long video, I know. And I know that you've stuck with me because you love me and it's all about me. Or I really hope that it's actually all about the books, but I love you too, man. This is the last one. This would felt like, in these, random lots of books that you buy from eBay, it feels like there's always kind of like one bonus thrown in there. And this feels to me like the bonus, right? It's not necessarily a science fiction anthology, even if it kind of looks like one, huh? This is Tales of the Incredible. In the old comics tradition, this is actually the old EC comics tradition. Unfortunately, right, book plus water equals tragedy, but it's still alive, it's still here, and it is not prose fiction. It is EC comics, sci-fi stuff, which I love. And if you couldn't hear it in my voice right then, that was love, Love, in all caps. And here's another reason to love this, right? L. Feldstein's comics aside, that's a reason to love it. That's as good a reason as anything. Frank Frazetta cover, right? And if you saw my Conan video, you need to have seen my Conan video. Why haven't you seen my Conan video? I blame you. Go see the Conan video where I'll talk more about the incredible Frank Frazetta, the just originator of fantasy art. He did a lot of good sci-fi stuff too, and this is one of them. Just fantastic. And in that Conan video, I showed this book, which I have here, but my setup is impossible to show the whole thing. This is Frazetta book cover art by David Spurlock. You're right. Complete collection, definitive reference, and it sure is. And look what we have here. Tales of the Incredible in the old comics tradition by Frank Frazetta. Just always excited to see Frazetta covers. And in this box, right, we've got a Steranko and a Frazetta. This is just a huge, sci-fi nerd win. Delighted beyond belief to have these. I'm just this great EC Comics fan. I don't know what else to say about it but that. It's got a Frank Frazetta cover. It's Ballantine Books, March 1965. So Phil, not quite 1 year old yet when this came out. Love L. Feldstein. God. Just great. The condition is rough, but that almost gives it an extra charm. Outstanding. And of course, there's the Tales from the Crypt. Oh, I wish it was in slightly better shape, but it doesn't matter. This is just such a keeper. I'm so excited to have this. Just really, really geeking out on this book. And that was it, right? That's the last one. What a way to end the science fiction and fantasy anthology book haul. It was 27 books in all. So much to look at, so much to love, so much to read. I'm going to read every single one of these. And remember, this is true. I mean, maybe there's a little straggler here and there in some of the big book hauls that might have kind of random things thrown in. As a collector, I do not, and just as a human, I do not buy books that I don't intend to read. Will I live long enough to read all the books I currently own? Well, that's in God's hands, isn't it? But I'm going to keep buying them. And I absolutely intend to read every single one of them. Some, like Tales of the Incredible, much sooner rather than later. But anyway, this is going to be the last book haul video probably in a while. We'll come back here to Fantasy Author's Handbook for sure for more on writing fantasy, science fiction, horror, fiction in general. More on the genres themselves, and who knows what else, right? Anything can happen here at Fantasy Author's Handbook. And again, look, I know you like this book. I know you like this book. I mean, just the artifacts themselves are just fantastic to have. Just, so beautiful. Do you like this video? Like it, right? Hit that button, the thumbs up button. I know my hand looks weird and gross like it when it's that, whatever. Like, comment, right? some of the artists I couldn't, and I did have somebody help me out with the interior artist of one of the Conan books. If you recognize who these, or can find out who the uncredited artists are, please let me know. Opinions about any of the authors that we've seen today, be positive and nice. Don't be mean or anything, but let's hear it, right? What's going on? Comment. And why are you not subscribed? It's free. There's no like super secret Patreon or anything like that. I'm not going to, demand money from you every month. It's okay. Just hit the free subscribe and then you'll be subscribed and everybody will be happy. And share this stuff, right? Are you out there in the world? Are you out there in the horror hellscape of social media? Share the video. Tell your friends. Your friends want to know. Your friends are desperate. Your friends are desperate to see this video and all the other ones. And now I'm just going on. Thank you. Thank you for joining me with these groovy old anthologies. All came to me in one big box or medium-sized box from eBay. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.